day 2 of the 36th TESOL Greece Annual Convention. We're literally minutes after Mr. Crystal's presentation, and which ended with a standing ovation in a packed auditorium.
Yeah.
We want to thank you for your time and for being here with us. Thank you very much.
No, it's been a pleasure. It is. Rapping away at the end usually does get everybody up on their feet
Yes.
a little bit.
You know, it was a really amazing presentation on accents. And Aristotle said that in order to persuade someone, you need to use ethos, logos, and pathos. So do you believe that accent might be the new ethos, let's say?
Well, there's more to accents than people think. People sometimes think of accent as just being a vowel and a consonant shift or something of that kind, and that if you get a new accent, if you're learning an accent, that's all you have to do. When you're learning received pronunciation, for example, you try and get all those vowel values exactly right and make sure that a Greek accent doesn't come in or a French accent doesn't come in, and so on. But the other side of accent is the whole business of not what you say, but the way that you say it. And that means the intonation, the melody of the speech, the speed of the speech, the loudness of the speech, the rhythm of the speech, all the tones of voice that you put in when you're speaking in the most rhetorical way possible. And now that brings us back to Aristotle, because if you're trying to persuade somebody through rhetoric that your argument is the best thing on this earth, then what you're going to do is you're going to use all those features of accent, not just the vowels and the consonants. So I think, yes, so long as you take a very broad conception of accent, then the point is there. You can't avoid it, really.
In terms of English language teaching, how important is it for a teacher of English to be a native speaker?
Oh, not anymore. Not important at all. Not important at all. Used to be. In the days when the native speakers were the people who owned the language, then of course that was the only way you could possibly proceed. But these days, for every one native speaker, there is now 5 non-native speakers around the world. I mean, whoever's watching this, you are in the majority. You know, the native speakers are a minority now. And that's all the native speakers, remember. Britain, America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the Caribbean, and so on and so forth. If you take just British English as your model, and you take received pronunciation as the model of that, we're talking about 2% of the population of England only speaking received pronunciation. So the odds on you actually meeting an RP speaker, if you are remote really, or at least, of course, you meet them. In the circumstances where we often travel, we meet them all the time. And if you listen to the BBC, you'll hear them all the time. But go and stand on the corner of Oxford Street or somewhere and listen to all the accents passing you by. And wait for the native speaker speaking RP, and you might have to wait quite a long time, you know. And so the implications of that are quite important. It doesn't affect teachers teaching RP. That will carry on happening for those who want to teach a British model, because that is the model everybody's used to. It's where the materials are, and the exam boards expect it very often, and so on. But as I was saying in the talk, it's listening comprehension where you have to broaden the remit. Students have to leave their course prepared to encounter the extraordinary range of accents that people use when they're speaking English around the world. And 400 million people speak English as a first language, 400 million people speak English as a second language in India. You know, so there are as many people now speaking English in India as there are native speakers around the world. And so numbers count when it comes to language. You know, the more people speak in a certain way, the more that you're influenced by those people. And so you start to pick up, you accommodate to those different accents, sometimes in quite unconscious ways. And that's one side. The other side is, don't be scared of your own accent. You see, if you speak English with a Greek accent, what's wrong with that? Nothing wrong with that at all, so long as you're intelligible, so long as I understand you and you understand me, you sound Greek. That's lovely, that's beautiful, that's the Greek linguistic flower in the garden of English language flowers. And I don't want Greek people to stop sounding Greek, it's gorgeous. I don't want French people to stop sounding French, when they speak English I mean, it's gorgeous. And nor do I want British people. Everybody needs their identity. And so anybody who's learning English as a second language who says to me, you know, I wish I could lose my accent, I say, why do you want to lose your accent? Do you want to be like me? Do you want to be like somebody British? Well, there are a few people in the world who want to be like that, but most people want to stay who they are. And that's so important. And so be proud of your accent. I mean, you still have to be intelligible, of course, but don't think that you have to lose your accent all the time in order to be an efficient speaker of English.
Well, one of the teachers outside, Safi Mandali, she asked me to ask you if this talent you have with the accent is inherited or you have worked on it.
Oh, no. Very much. It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. If you're good at accents, now, if you've ever seen a television impressionist, somebody who can copy the Prime Minister perfectly, you know, that's a gift. That is a real gift. I couldn't do that. I could not imitate David Cameron or any of those people. You know, that's not me. No, you have to have a bit of a gift for it, I think. You have to be a bit of an actor, but then all teachers are actors. Are we not? You know, you stand in front of a class, you act straight away. You have to. And if you do it on stage, that's just a slightly different world from being in front of a class every day. Now, if you've got that gift to be extrovert and a teacher or an actor and so on, that's half the battle, certainly. But the other half of the battle is you have to study the accent. You really do. You can't just copy a sentence. That's not enough. You have to really analyse it out. Look at all the vowels, all the consonants, all the intonation patterns, and then work on them. So the only accents I can do really well are the ones that I've studied in that way. And there are some accents in English I can't do because I never studied them. I could have a guess, but I'd get them wrong. And if I met somebody from that part of the world, they'd say, you've done it wrong. Whereas if you've studied the accent, you don't get it wrong. You know exactly how it works, you see. So you do need that phonetician's study. This is what phonetics does. It teaches you how to listen and use the sounds of the language in that way.
Now, you've used a number of accents in your presentation, but you didn't want to use a Greek one. Can we have a Greek one?
No, I remember I had an argument about surviving. I have a basic principle. Never, ever try to do the accent of the country that you're in. You know, because people will immediately, first of all, they'll think you're mocking it. You know, I know you wouldn't, but where is this film going to be, you see? And people will think you're taking the mickey, as they say, out of the accent. I mean, you notice, for example, when I gave the Indian accent, there was a great deal of laughter around the room. It wasn't unkind laughter, it was recognition laughter. Yes. But there are some people who, when you hear an accent that is not yours, you do tend to sort of think of it in a kind of mocking sort of way. And so, I would do a Greek accent if I'd ever studied it, but I never have, you see, so I wouldn't like to guess at it, because you sometimes guess at an accent, and you don't know the cultural background of the place that you're in, and you suddenly end up sounding like somebody that's on television that everybody laughs at, or from a part of the country that everybody mocks. You know, every country has a part of the country where they say they're stupid over there, you know, and you sound like them without realising it. So you've got to study the accent. It's the only way.
It has been a privilege and a pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Not at all. It's been a real delight. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.